My name is Eudora Mayfield. I am 58 years old. I grew up on a small farm outside of Selma. I taught third grade for 30 years. I raised 3 children. I grew vegetables, paid my taxes, and learned how to forgive when forgiveness was the only thing left to give. Last month, after a long year of paperwork and meetings, the county named me director of the community center. At my age, a promotion felt like sunshine after a long winter. My pension would be a little bigger. My name would be on the door. It was a small victory, but it was mine. If you like stories like this, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notifications button so you will know when the next chapter drops. Before we start, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know who is with me tonight. My husband Cortez had been planning a party for 2 weeks. Cortez likes to celebrate. He says life is too short to skip a plate of collard greens. He set the table in the dining room with my grandmother's china. He invited neighbors from our block and a few faces from church. His voice carried pride that morning as he phoned folks and told them to come dressed like Sunday. He called me at work and said he had a surprise waiting. The house smelled like lemon oil and old wood when I walked in. My coat was damp from the rain and I felt tired but good. I had spent the afternoon saying goodbye to kids who I taught for years. They hugged me like I was a piece of home they could take with them. The promotion had been kind to my chest. I was full of something like hope and exhaustion at the same time. The living room filled up in a quiet, steady way. People arrived with flowers and casseroles. My daughter Latoria brought a cake shaped like a book. My neighbor Miss June, who had known me since I was a child, cried when she hugged me. Cortez stood by the kitchen door with his grin that wanted the whole night to be perfect. He wore his Sunday jacket even though it was a Wednesday. I thought about the way his hands still smelled like grease from the little repair shop he runs. I thought about the silver hair at his temples and the way he hummed old songs off-key. Someone laughed and the sound filled the house like a bell. The table groaned with food. Macaroni and cheese in a glass dish. Baked ham glazed with cinnamon. Collard greens singing with smoked ham hock. Yams in brown sugar. Plates that meant home. My mouth watered and my eyes watered, and for a moment I just stood there and let gratitude fold around me like a warm blanket. Then I smelled it. It was not the warm, slow smell of frying or baking. At first I thought it might be perfume. Then I thought of soap. The scent was floral and sharp and out of place among the smells of butter and onion and sweet potatoes. It was the kind of scent you find in a shopping mall perfume counter, not a small town kitchen. It cut through the room like a wind that wanted to move furniture. I told myself I was silly. Parties jumble things. People bring food from restaurants. Maybe someone had used a scented oil or a new cleaner. Cortez saw me pause and raised an eyebrow. Then I caught it again. The scent came from the hallway that led to the back of the house. It came from the same direction as the kitchen. My feet found the tiles before my mind did. I walked toward the kitchen because that is where you go when food is on your mind. In the doorway a dish towel hung like a flag. The air around the stove trembled with the wrong smell. 2 of the pot lids were off. Someone had been stirring. Someone had put a lid back on and left the room. There was steam on the window. The oven clock blinked like a tiny watchful eye. Cortez followed me. He kept his voice low and practiced. He told a joke about the potato salad and the way I always said it was too salty. People crowded behind us and the chatter softened into little noises like distant birds. I moved slower because I wanted to see everything. I wanted to find the explanation and come back smiling. At the sink my hand found the handle of the wooden spoon I had used to stir gumbo years ago. My palm remembered that with the way memory remembers a face. I reached for the pot nearest the stove and lifted the lid just enough to peek. The smell hit me again, fuller this time and with another layer. Beneath the perfume was something else. It was the scent of smoke. Not the kind from a bonfire in the yard. It was the sharp, chemical smell of something melting. The kind of smell that tells you a wire has been touched by flame. My heart made a small mistake. I set the lid down and stepped back. Cortez said my name like a question. He touched my shoulder with the gentlest of hands. He whispered that everything was fine. His words moved over me, but I could not hear them. I only heard the hollow thump of my pulse. People from the living room started toward the kitchen. Miss June asked if she could help. Latoria carried the cake in slowly, laughing because something in the living room had made her laugh. I told everyone to wait and to give me a moment. My voice was a thin thread. I swallowed. I moved to the hallway that led to the back bedroom. At the threshold I paused again. The floral scent was stronger there. It pooled in the corridor like water. I noticed now that it had a creamy edge, like expensive lotion or perfume. My stomach turned in a slow, familiar way. That smell belonged to a woman who wore silk scarves and had a laugh that wrapped people up. I knew that laugh. I had heard it once before, a long time ago, on a day that hurt. I stepped into the bedroom and the world rearranged. Clothes were draped over the foot of the bed, not the tidy arrangement a housewife leaves before guests. A purse lay on the chair open, its contents scattered like small coins. A pair of shoes sat by the dresser. The perfume bottle was on the nightstand. It was a bottle I did not recognize, clear glass with a label in tiny script. The scent rose from it like a fine steam. My hands wanted to twist into fists. My mouth wanted to ask questions. My feet wanted to run back into the dining room, to take the applause and the hugs and to fold myself back into the safety of celebration. Instead I stood very still and counted the beats of my heart. 1, 2, 3. My breath was shallow. Cortez came up behind me and saw the scene. For a moment he looked like a man who had been caught in sunlight without his hat. His face changed into an expression that had been hiding under his pride for years. The room shrank until the only thing that mattered was the perfume bottle on the nightstand and the phone that lay face up on the dresser. Then I saw the message preview on the phone screen. 3 words and a laughing face. The words were not meant for me. I do not know how I moved. People later told me I pushed them gently and that no one resisted. I remember the feel of the wallpaper under my fingers and the sound of someone in the living room saying, "Eudora, are you okay?" in a voice that tried to be calm. I remember opening the phone and reading the rest of the messages, because once I saw those 3 words I could not close my eyes again. I closed the phone and put it in my pocket. I did what you do when you do not yet have the language to name what you feel. I smoothed my dress, walked back to the dining room, and smiled. I said thank you to Miss June for the greens and I hugged Latoria like nothing had happened. People clapped when Cortez stood and lifted his glass to say a few proud words about my promotion. I let my hands lift and my face smile. But inside, something had already changed. I had come to celebrate a promotion. I had come to let the small town say well done. I had not expected to smell perfume in my house or to see a phone with a laughing face. I had not expected a season of my life to tilt so quickly. When the music started and the first pieces of cake were handed out, I made a decision that felt as simple and as heavy as carrying a basket of laundry. I would not let my life be squeezed down to a single moment. I would find the truth, but I would find it on my own terms. I would not become loud or small. I would be steady. Then I heard the back door close. Not in my house, but somewhere outside. A car door slamming. A laugh that was mine and not mine. The voice had a note I knew. I turned toward the sound without thinking and started down the back steps. The screen door scraped like a knife. The air hit my face. It smelled like rain and asphalt and something else I could not name. On the porch a woman stood under the dim light. Her hair fell like silk. She held a paper bag. She smiled the way a person smiles when they think they have been invited. I stepped forward and raised my hand to ask her name. She tilted her head, looked at me straight in the eyes, and said a name I had not heard in 25 years. I opened my mouth to answer. Then the woman said the words that made the world tilt again. I rushed to the back porch because of the smell of the food. What I found there made me drop the cake I was carrying. The woman's voice echoed in my ears long after the words left her mouth. She said that name like she owned it, like it belonged in my house, like it had a place in the story of my life. I stared at her under the weak yellow porch light, trying to fit her face with my memories. She looked younger than me, maybe mid-30s. Her skin glowed like she had stepped out of a warm room into the chilled evening. Her eyes were bright and curious, the kind of eyes that had never known the weight of betrayal. She held the brown paper bag with the confidence of someone bringing a gift to a home they believed welcomed them. I tightened my fingers around the edge of the porch railing. My breath came in a slow pull that reminded me of the way I used to steady myself before stepping into my classroom each morning. Patience first. Words later. But patience was heavy tonight. I asked her again, slower this time, what her name was. She repeated it. The same name. The same gentle smile. The same easy tone, like she hadn't just stepped into the softest part of my history. She introduced herself as if she belonged here. As if she had been waiting for me. As if she knew me well enough to speak without fear. Behind me, the party hummed. Laughter rolled from the dining room windows, warm and full like bread rising in an oven. If anyone noticed that I was gone, they didn't show it. The porch light flickered a little, throwing her face into patterns of shadow. I could hear the soft clink of glasses. I could see the shape of my husband moving inside the house, talking and smiling with guests. Her perfume floated on the air. That same floral scent I smelled near the pots. The same scent that pulled me toward the kitchen. The same scent that brought me here to this moment. She saw the confusion on my face and shifted the bag in her hands like she was about to hand it to me. She said she had brought something special, something Cortez liked, something he asked her to bring. My chest tightened. I felt the porch tilt under my feet. Cortez. She said his name with the ease of someone who had said it many times before. Too many times. I held my breath in a quiet way, the same way I used to hold it when the school superintendent walked into my classroom without warning. I held it because breathing felt like it would shatter the moment. I asked her why she was here. She laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was soft and warm, like she wanted to place it gently in my hands. She told me that Cortez told her to come through the back door, so it wouldn't disturb the celebration. She said he wanted her to drop off something before all the food was served. My mind went blank and sharp at the same time. Back door. Perfume. Kitchen. Pot lids moved. This woman's presence felt like a puzzle piece that had been hidden under the couch for months and was suddenly placed on the table. She held out the bag to me. I didn't take it. My voice didn't come out soft. It came out steady. Too steady. I told her to explain herself fully. I wanted every detail. Why was she here? Why did she know my husband? Why was her perfume in my kitchen? Why was her bottle in my bedroom? Why was her phone there with messages that were not meant for my eyes? Her smile faltered for the first time. She looked at me, then at the ground, then at the bag. She said she was just helping. That's all. Just helping Cortez. Just helping a friend. A friend. I have lived 58 years, and I know what people look like when they are lying. Their eyes visit too many corners of the world at once. Their fingers play with things they never noticed before. Their voice lifts at the wrong moments. She looked like all of that. Before I could decide what to say next, the kitchen door swung open. A flood of warm yellow light spilled onto the porch. Cortez stepped out, his face tight, his eyes wide like someone caught between two storms. His voice cracked when he said my name. The woman stood straight when she saw him. She smiled in that soft way again, the way a child smiles at someone familiar. She lifted the bag a little, like she was reminding him why she was there. Cortez's jaw tightened. My heart didn't break. It didn't shatter. It didn't crack. It simply widened like a quiet canyon forming itself. He said her name. The same name she told me. The name I had not heard in 25 years. My knees felt weak, but I did not fall. I straightened my back and looked at both of them. Cortez tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. He stepped forward with a little hesitance, like he wanted to stand between us. I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. He reached for the bag in the woman's hands. She didn't let it go at first. They exchanged a look that felt rehearsed. A look that carried months of quiet understanding. She finally released the bag when he tugged again. Then she said something that froze my breath in my chest. Something simple. Something dangerous. Something that carried the truth under its tongue. She asked him if she should stay or leave. Stay. The word hit me harder than any lie could. Cortez looked at me, then at her, then at the dark yard beyond the porch. His mouth opened and closed. The truth trembled on his lips, but he held it. I realized then that the cliff I stood at the edge of was taller than I had thought. Taller, steeper, darker. The woman stepped down from the porch. Her shoes clicked lightly against the wooden step. She looked back at me with an expression that was not bold, not ashamed. Something else. Something in between. She said she would wait in her car until Cortez called her. Then she walked into the darkness. I turned to Cortez. I waited for the truth. I waited for the story. I waited for him to treat me like the woman he had been married to for 35 years. But before he could speak, something inside the house crashed loudly. A dish. A glass. Something heavy. People gasped. A child cried out. Someone called my name. That was when I rushed back inside. And what I found in that kitchen made me stop breathing for several seconds. The sound of the crash shook the whole house. It echoed through the walls like thunder rolling across an open field. People gasped and murmured as I hurried inside. I could feel Cortez behind me, following close but not touching me, as if he knew better than to reach for me now. The smell of perfume still clung to my clothes as I stepped into the kitchen. Everyone stood frozen. My daughter, Latoria, had her hands over her mouth. Her eyes were wide, round, and wet. Miss June held her heart with one hand and a dish towel with the other. A few neighbors hovered by the doorway, whispering to themselves. The lights flickered once, casting strange shadows across the counter. The glass dish that held the macaroni and cheese lay shattered on the floor, the bright yellow noodles scattered like spilled gold. But the food wasn't what stole my breath. There was a long, dark scorch mark stretching across the side of the stove. The kind that came from something overheating. Smoke curled from beneath the back burner. The smell of melted plastic filled the air. Someone had placed a small heating coil, one that didn't belong to my stove, tucked just behind the pots, hidden but still glowing with a dangerous red heat. Someone had sabotaged the food. Someone had tried to start a fire. Miss June pointed to the corner where a melted plastic bag dripped onto the floor. Whatever had been inside it was gone, burned away. It looked deliberate. It looked planned. The room tilted. My eyes swept from the scorch mark to the pots, to the perfume I had smelled earlier. Someone had been near my food. Someone had touched my stove. Someone had walked into my kitchen with the confidence of a person who believed they belonged there. And now I knew who that someone might be. Cortez stepped forward, his voice thin. He insisted it must have been an accident. Maybe something fell. Maybe he left the burner too high. But the look I gave him made him stop talking mid-sentence. Latoria turned to me. "Mama, what's going on?" Her voice shook like paper. I swallowed hard. My eyes wandered to the phone still tucked in my pocket, the one with the messages I wasn't ready to show anyone yet. Not here. Not now. Not while the house was full of guests and secrets. I tried to answer her, but before I could, another voice cut through the room. It was Mr. Earl, our next-door neighbor. He pointed toward the cracked back window with a trembling hand. I saw a woman out there earlier," he said. "She walked behind the house. Thought she was one of your relatives." My heart dropped into my stomach. Cortez stiffened beside me. The perfume lingered in the air like a silent confession. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to gather myself. trying not to think about the younger woman on the porch, trying not to think about the way her perfume invaded every room she touched, trying not to think about the messages on her phone, trying not to think about how Cortez hesitated when she asked if she should stay or leave. When I opened my eyes again, the room was still watching me, waiting for me to explain, waiting for me to act, waiting for me to tell them everything was fine, even though nothing was fine anymore. My voice was steady when I finally spoke. "Everyone," I said, "thank you for coming to celebrate with me. But I think we need to clear the kitchen for a moment." People nodded slowly. They trusted my tone, trusted the quiet strength I'd built over decades of raising children, teaching classrooms, and smoothing over chaos. They began to move, gathering their plates, whispering as they stepped into the living room. The kitchen grew quieter. Smoke curled from the stove, rising in thin lines like unanswered questions. When the last person left the room, only Cortez and I remained. He stood across from me, his shoulders slumped, his eyes dark with something I could not yet name. Fear, guilt, shame, or all three. I turned off the remaining burners. Then I bent down, picked up a piece of the broken dish, and placed it on the counter. The ceramic felt warm, like it had held heat from more than just the oven. "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. "All of it." He swallowed. His lips parted. His voice worked hard to form the first words. But just as he opened his mouth, the back door creaked. Both of us turned sharply. A shadow passed by the window. And then, through the thin curtain, a woman's silhouette appeared. The same woman from the porch. She was standing outside again, watching us, waiting. Cortez froze completely. I felt my pulse in my throat. As I took a step toward the door, the woman slowly lifted her hand. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't waving. She was pointing at me. And when she finally spoke, her voice carried through the thin door as clear as thunder. "Eudora, you deserve to know the whole story." My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. But what she said next made my knees weaken, made my heartbeat break rhythm, made the floor feel unsteady beneath my feet. She said words I never expected to hear in my lifetime. Before I could open the door, before Cortez could stop me, before the guests could hear her, she said something that changed everything. Something that connected her to me in a way I never imagined. And when I opened that door, the truth waiting on the other side stole the little bit of peace I had left. The wind pushed softly against the back door as I opened it. The porch light flickered above me, throwing broken shapes across the woman's face. She stood a few feet away, her hands folded in front of her as if she were praying. Her eyes glistened with something that wasn't fear, and wasn't boldness either. It was something deeper. Something old. Behind me, Cortez whispered my name, but I didn't turn. I stepped outside, closing the door just enough so his voice became a distant hum. The woman inhaled slowly, as if she had been preparing for this moment all night. "Eudora," she said, "I didn't come here to ruin your party. I came because you needed to know the truth." The truth. That word tasted like metal in my mouth. I stood tall, even though my knees felt like they were balancing on thin ice. "Say what you came to say," I told her. My voice didn't shake. "Thank God for that." She nodded once. Then she lifted her chin like someone bracing for impact. "I'm your husband's daughter." The air left my lungs so fast I felt like I had been struck. For a moment, I couldn't hear the crickets. Couldn't hear the muffled voices from inside. Couldn't even hear my own heartbeat. Her words hit me like cold water. I stared at her, trying to hold onto the porch railing as if the wood could anchor me. "My husband's what?" I whispered. She swallowed, her eyes dropping to the porch steps. "His daughter," she repeated. "I'm 34. My mother raised me alone. I only met him when I turned 18. I felt the world shift beneath me. 34. That was during my marriage. During my years of carrying babies, cooking dinners, grading homework, and believing my husband was loyal. During the years when Cortez would come home with grease on his hands and stories about long shifts. During the years when I trusted without question. The woman looked up again. My name is Samira. And I didn't come here to cause trouble. I only came because... Her voice cracked. Because he told me tonight was important. And I thought it was time you knew. Inside the house, a glass clinked against a table. Laughter rose faintly. The party went on, unaware that the ground underneath my marriage had just opened. I steadied my breath. So why show up tonight? I asked, my voice carrying a calm I did not feel. Why now? Why my kitchen? Samira hesitated. I didn't mean to be in your bedroom. That was him. She glanced toward the back door. He said he wanted to talk to me privately before everyone arrived. He told me to wait there until he called me again. He said the kitchen was the safest place. I'm sorry for the mess. I didn't touch your things on purpose. I promise. I clenched my jaw. The perfume bottle. The phone. The scent in the pots. She was apologizing for stepping in spaces no one should have stepped in without my permission. But I wasn't ready to blame her yet. My anger aimed at only one person. Cortez. He told you to come through the back door? I asked. She nodded. He didn't want people to ask questions. Of course he didn't. I closed my eyes for one long moment. I remembered the hidden heating coil near the stove. The scorch mark. The melted bag. The scent. The sabotage. And suddenly, the pieces didn't fit neatly together anymore. I opened my eyes and looked at her sharply. Did you put something on my stove? Her face twisted with surprise. No. I would never. I didn't even go near it. When I came inside earlier, the stove was already hot. I thought y'all were cooking. I just dropped off the bag he gave me. What was in the bag? I asked. She hesitated again. Something he told me to bring from his shop. He said he needed it before the party. I didn't open it. A chill ran down my spine. From his shop. Cortez's repair shop. The same place filled with electrical parts. Wires. Tools. Heating coils. My hand tightened around the railing. Before I could ask anything else, the back door opened behind me. Cortez stepped outside slowly, as if approaching two wild animals who might attack if he moved too fast. Eudora. Samira. Let's go inside and talk. But I wasn't ready to go inside. And neither was Samira. I turned to him. Why didn't you tell me? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You had 35 years, I continued, heat rising in my voice. 35 years to tell me you had another child. Samira looked away. Cortez rubbed his forehead. Eudora, I was trying to protect you. Protect me. Those words felt like knives. I stepped closer to him. Protect me from what? From the truth? From your choices? From your lies? Samira shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen like this. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't arrogant. She wasn't smug. She wasn't trying to steal a place in my home. She looked like a child caught between the truth and loyalty. A child who never asked to exist in a lie. This wasn't her fault. But Cortez. Oh, Cortez stood there with a face full of shame and excuses, and not a single answer. Before I could speak again, a sudden blast of wind pushed the door wider. Inside the house, someone screamed. A high, sharp scream that sliced through the night. Latoria. My daughter. I rushed inside without thinking, my heart pounding as if trying to break free from my chest. Guests crowded around the kitchen doorway, murmuring in panic. Smoke filled the room again, thicker this time. The scorch mark had spread. The leftover heat had ignited something else, something near the lower cabinets. Then I saw it. A spark. A real flame. And sitting on the floor right next to it was something I recognized immediately. Something that didn't belong in my kitchen at all. Something from Cortez's shop. A metal object with wires pulsing faintly. My daughter cried out again, backing away from the growing flame. And in that moment, everything inside me shifted. It wasn't Samira. It wasn't an accident. Someone had brought this into my kitchen on purpose. Someone had tried to start a fire in my home. With guests inside. With my children present. With me standing only steps away. I turned slowly toward the doorway, where Samira and Cortez stood frozen. My eyes locked on Cortez's face. And for the first time that night, I saw something clearly. Something I should have seen a long time ago. I stepped toward him, the fire crackling behind me. Before he could speak, before excuses could form, before tears could fall, I said the words that cut deeper than any flame. The fire crackled behind me, snapping sharp like breaking bones. Smoke curled around the ceiling, and the guests scattered back as Mr. Earl grabbed a dish towel and tried to smother the flame. Latoria cried out again, and Miss June pulled her close, whispering calming words she could barely keep steady. But my eyes were locked on Cortez. The metal device from his shop sat on the floor, wires glowing faintly like veins waking up. It was no accident. No mistake. No misunderstanding. Someone had planted it. Someone had planned it. And the only person who had access to something like that, the only person who brought a secret bag into my house tonight, was now standing in my doorway with guilt written across his face. I stepped toward him, the smoke swirling around my dress like a warning. His eyes widened. He took half a step back, his shoulders sagging. I had held decades of disappointment inside my chest, but tonight it all rose to the surface. Not loud. Not wild. Just steady. Cold. Final. I looked him dead in the eyes and said quietly, "Cortez, what did you bring into my house?" His lips parted, trembling. "Eudora, I never meant." "Meant what?" I cut in. "Meant for your daughter to walk into my bedroom? Meant for your lies to spill into my celebration? Or meant for a fire to start in my kitchen while my grandchildren were standing right there?" He dragged a hand down his face, avoiding my eyes. "Baby, I was just trying to fix something before the party. The piece in that bag. It malfunctioned. I didn't know it would." He stopped talking, because even he didn't believe himself anymore. Samira stepped forward. "Eudora, please listen. He asked me to bring that bag on my way here. I didn't know what was inside." I glanced at her. Her eyes were soft with regret, a child caught between loyalty to a father she barely knew and respect for a woman who didn't deserve any of this. "This wasn't her doing," I said. "I can see that." Relief washed over her face, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked hurt. Confused. She had walked into the wrong storm on the wrong night. Cortez finally spoke again, his voice small. "Eudora, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I swear. I just needed a spare part for the heater in the shed. It slipped out the bag. It fell near the stove when things got busy." I stared at him. "You expect me to believe that? You expect me to believe this? Coincidence happened the same night your daughter walked around my kitchen wearing perfume I didn't buy, standing in my bedroom like she lived here? You think I'm blind, Cortez?" His shoulders tensed. "I didn't want tonight to be like this." "And yet," I said, stepping closer, "tonight is exactly like this." Behind me, the flame died as Mr. Earl and Miss June stamped out the last sparks. Someone opened a window. Fresh air poured in, but it didn't clear the fog building in my chest. Latoria moved to my side, wiping her tears. "Mama," she whispered. "What's going on?" I turned to her slowly and kissed her forehead. "Go into the living room, baby. Stay with Miss June. I'll be there in a moment." She hesitated, glancing between me and her father. For the first time in her life, she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. She didn't see the father who taught her how to ride a bike, who fixed her broken shoes, who used to whistle old blues songs on Sunday mornings. She saw something else. She stepped away. The room fell silent. Cortez stood alone, hands shaking, eyes heavy with guilt he could no longer hide. My voice was quiet when I spoke again. You owe Samira the truth. And you owe me more than that. He swallowed hard. Eudora. I made mistakes. Mistakes, I repeated. That's what you call a whole-grown daughter you hid from me? That's what you call lying to me for 35 years? That's what you call sneaking around and whispering in corners? That's what you call bringing dangerous things into my house? His eyes filled with tears. He reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. I wasn't ready for his touch. I wasn't ready for his excuses. I wasn't ready to fold myself into forgiveness the way I used to do to keep this family standing. Samira looked at him, then looked at me. Eudora. I swear I didn't know he never told you. I thought you knew, and you didn't want me around. Her voice cracked, trembling like a child left outside in the rain. Something softened in me, not for Cortez, but for her. Honey, I said gently, none of this is your fault. Her face broke, tears spilling. Cortez took a shaky breath, like a man finally cornered by his own truth. Eudora, he whispered. Please, let me explain. Explain. I said, my voice steady. Explain how you created a whole life outside our marriage. Explain how you carried that secret into my home tonight. Explain why your daughter had to reveal herself on my back porch like a shadow. Explain what you were planning with that thing from your shop. Yes, Cortez. I think you should explain. He opened his mouth. But before any words came out, before excuses could spill, before the room could breathe again, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the entire house went black. A few guests screamed. Someone dropped another glass. Children cried out. The darkness swallowed everything. Then, out of the silence, a voice rose from the doorway. A voice I recognized. A voice that carried calm and danger at the same time. It was Samira. Everyone, stay where you are, she said. Even in the dark, I could feel her presence. She took a slow breath. There's something else I need to tell you. A cold chill rolled down my spine. Her words hung in the dark like a warning. And when the power came back on, flickering the room into pale yellow light, the look on her face told me this night was far from over. Because the truth she had been holding was bigger, darker, and much more dangerous than anything she had said before. The lights buzzed weakly as they flickered back to life. The kitchen glowed in a dim yellow that made every face look older, every shadow longer, every truth sharper. Guests whispered anxiously, gathering their children and clutching their coats as if the darkness had warned them of something bigger than a blown fuse. Samira stood in the doorway, her chest rising and falling like she had just run a mile. But her eyes stared straight at Cortez with a look that didn't belong to a child begging for acceptance. It belonged to someone holding a truth that could destroy the whole room. I steadied myself against the counter. The stove was still warm, the air still thick with smoke and secrets. My throat burned from everything I had swallowed tonight. Shock, anger, betrayal, but now something new settled there. Fear. Samira's voice was low, trembling but determined. Before anyone says another word, I need to explain why I came here tonight. And it wasn't just to meet you, Eudora. Or to celebrate some promotion. Cortez stiffened. Samira. Don't. She raised her hand, silencing him. That alone told me more than any words could have. She wasn't his dirty little secret. She wasn't here by mistake. She wasn't confused. She was in control now. She took a small step forward. Eudora. I didn't come here tonight to break your marriage. I came because I got tired of begging your husband to stop lying. A cold shiver ran up my spine. Miss June gasped. Mr. Earl muttered something under his breath about stepping outside for fresh air but didn't move. My daughter clutched her hands together, her lips trembling as she leaned against the wall. Samira continued, voice shaking but strong. I found out something 2 months ago. Something about my mother. Something about how she died. Silence fell so heavy the air hummed. I blinked slowly, trying to follow the sharp turn the night was taking. Your mother? I asked softly. Samira's eyes welled up, but she held herself firm. My mother didn't die from some random heart condition like Cortez told everyone. She wasn't sick. She wasn't weak. She paused, swallowed hard, then said the words that made my blood freeze. She died in his shop. And it wasn't an accident. A powerful stillness spread through the room. Even the smoke seemed to pause in the air. My breath caught. Cortez stumbled back like someone had shoved him. That's not true, he whispered. Samira, you don't understand. What don't I understand, Dad? She snapped. That you lied about everything? That you covered up her death? That you told the police she fainted while you stepped outside to get more tools? You didn't tell them you were arguing. You didn't tell them she found something she wasn't supposed to see. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to stay upright. Cortez shook his head violently. Stop this. Stop this right now. But Samira wasn't stopping. Not tonight. Not anymore. She found your ledgers, Samira said. The ones you kept hidden under the loose floorboard in your office. The ones that showed you were taking money from customers. Double-charging elderly folks who trusted you. Billing for repairs you never did. I staggered back. Miss June dropped her towel. Latoria's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair. You lied to the whole town, Samira said, tears rolling now. You lied to your wife. You lied to me. And when my mother threatened to leave and tell the police, you didn't stop her from walking into that shop with those exposed wires. You didn't stop her from touching something she thought was safe. Cortez let out a ragged sound. I didn't kill her. She tripped. Her hand slipped. You watched her fall. Samira screamed, her voice echoing off the kitchen walls. You watched her die. And then you ran outside and came back in pretending you had just found her. Her words cut through the room like a knife. I felt faint. My hands trembled. Cortez collapsed onto a chair, covering his face. I didn't mean for her to die, he whispered. I didn't mean for any of this. Samira wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I came here tonight because I found her journal. She wrote everything down. Every conversation. Every threat. Every fear she had about you. Cortez's face drained of color. And suddenly, the odd little details of the evening snapped into place. The secret bag. The heating coil. The sabotage in the kitchen. The sudden blackout. He had been panicking. Trying to hide something. Destroy something. Erase something. Samira looked at me now. Really looked at me, searching my face for something soft, something motherly, something understanding. I didn't come to hurt you, Eudora, she whispered. I came because you deserve to know the truth. And because I think he was planning to destroy the last piece of evidence tonight. Evidence. I felt something in my chest crack open. My voice was barely a whisper. Why? Why now? Samira closed her eyes, then opened them with a calm I hadn't seen before. Because yesterday, she said, I discovered something else. She reached into her jacket pocket, pulled out a folded paper, held it toward me with trembling fingers. Cortez lunged forward. Samira, don't. But she stepped back, holding the paper close to her chest. This, she whispered, is the part you need to hear the most. She unfolded it slowly, the paper shaking. My breath hitched. Everyone leaned in. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, but it struck like lightning. Eudora, she said, My mother wrote something in her journal the day before she died. Something about you. The room spun. She stepped closer, held the paper out again, and whispered the words that made my entire world stop. The paper in Samira's hand shook like a leaf in a storm. Every eye in the kitchen watched her fingers unfold it, slow and careful, as if the truth inside it might burn her. Cortez stood frozen, his face pale, his hands trembling at his sides. He looked like a man watching his whole world crumble brick by brick, and knowing he had laid the foundation himself. I stepped closer, my heart thudding in my chest, heavy as a hammer. What did she write? I whispered. What did your mother say about me? Samira sucked in a breath, and for a moment, she looked younger than her 34 years, like a little girl holding a secret far too heavy for her small hands. She wrote, Samira said slowly, that she met a woman once, a woman who changed her life. A woman who didn't even know she had done it. A wave of heat rushed to my face. What woman? Samira looked at me, her voice softening. You. The kitchen spun around me. I had no words, none that made sense. I tried to reach for a memory, a face, something that connected me to a woman who had been gone for decades, but my mind was blank. Samira continued, unfolding the paper completely. She wrote that years ago, long before she met my father. She worked at the old community center as a part-time cleaner. You were a young teacher then. She saw you talk to a student who was crying in the hallway. You held that child's face in your hands and told them they mattered. That they were worth fighting for. That they didn't need to carry grown-up burdens alone. My breath caught in my throat. She wrote, Samira continued, that she watched you from the end of the hall and saw how your kindness made the child stand taller. She said she'd never seen anything so pure. She said she wanted to be that kind of woman. To raise her child, me, to be strong, honest, and brave. My eyes stung. A memory flickered, a little boy who cried because his father shouted at him in the principal's office. I had knelt to tell him that his feelings mattered. I had no idea a young woman was watching, or that moment had planted something inside her. Samira inhaled shakily. She wrote that you inspired her, that she wanted to meet you someday and thank you. But she never got the chance. My knees weakened. My hand found the edge of the counter. And she wrote, Samira whispered, that if anything ever happened to her, I should look for you. Because you were the kind of woman who could stand in truth. The kind of woman who could see through lies. The kind of woman who could protect others, even when the world falls apart. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I even realized they were coming. Samira looked at me with a sorrow so deep it hurt to witness. I didn't know she meant all of this. I didn't know she left instructions. I didn't know she trusted a stranger more than the man she loved. Cortez groaned softly, like her words were twisting a knife in his chest. And that's why I came tonight, Samira said. Not just because I wanted answers, but because she believed you would know what to do when the truth finally came out. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. What truth? I whispered. Tell me. Samira swallowed hard. Her fingers tightened around the paper. There's more. Something she wrote at the very bottom, something that explains everything. Why she was in the shop that day. Why she refused to leave. Why she fought with my father. Cortez's voice broke sharply. Samira, stop. But Samira didn't stop. Her voice spilled out, trembling with pain. She found documents in his office. Checks he cashed using other people's names. Receipts he forged. A loan he took against your house, Eudora, without telling you. My stomach dropped. The room went silent. Cortez held his hands up like he could push the truth back into her mouth. I was going to fix it. You were going to bury it. Samira shouted. Just like you tried to bury her. The guests gasped. Someone whispered a prayer under their breath. I stared at Cortez, my breath shallow and uneven. You put a loan on my house? He looked away. I was going to pay it back. The room erupted in whispers. But Samira wasn't finished. She lifted the paper again, her eyes glistening. "And my mother wrote one more thing," she said. "Something she wanted you to know when this day finally came." I braced myself. She wrote, "Eudora is stronger than I ever was. And when she learns the truth, she will not fall apart. She will rise. And she will save whoever needs saving. Even me." My breath trembled. Save her. What did she mean? Save her from what? Save her from who? Before I could ask, a heavy pounding rattled the front door. Everyone jumped. The sound boomed through the house. 3 deep knocks, hard enough to shake the walls. Mr. Earl moved to the doorway. Who in the world knocking like that this late? No one answered. Then came another 3 knocks. But this time, a voice followed, a voice cold and commanding. "Open up. This is county police." My heart dropped to my stomach. Latoria covered her mouth. Samira froze. Cortez's legs buckled beneath him, and he sank into the nearest chair, his face ghost white. "Police," Miss June whispered, eyes wide. The knocks came again, harder. "We have questions for the family of Cortez Mayfield." A chill ran through me like ice water. Something had already reached them. Something Samira didn't get to say yet. Something bigger than the fire. Something bigger than the loan. Something bigger than the lies. The room turned to me, all eyes waiting for my next move. I took a slow, deep breath. Then stepped toward the front of the house. The knocking shook the house again, louder this time, rattling the picture frames on the walls. The guests huddled together in the living room, holding their purses, clutching their children, whispering prayers under their breath. Somewhere behind me, Samira inhaled sharply. Cortez buried his face in his hands, rocking slightly like a man already defeated. I stood still for a moment, staring at the front door. Then I took a slow breath and walked toward it. My feet felt heavy, like each step carried the weight of 35 years of lies, secrets, and silent sacrifices. But I kept moving. My mother always told me, when you're scared, walk anyway. Courage comes to those who keep walking. I reached the door. The knocks stopped. The house went silent. I turned the knob slowly and opened the door. 2 county officers stood on my porch. Their faces were stern, their raincoats damp from the night air. A police car idled quietly behind them, red and blue lights flashing a soft rhythm across my lawn. "Mrs. Eudora Mayfield?" the taller officer asked. "Yes," I answered, steadying my voice. He nodded. "We need to speak with you, your husband, and," he glanced at his notepad, "a woman named Samira Collins." I felt my heart pulse in my throat. "She's here," I said. "We're all here." The officers stepped inside, removing their hats out of respect. The room fell into a hush. Even the children stopped crying. "Ma'am," the shorter officer said gently, "we're very sorry to interrupt your evening, but we received a call 4 hours ago. A call related to a case that's been dormant for years." Samira flinched. Cortez looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. The officer continued, "Your husband is being accused of withholding information surrounding the death of a woman named." "My mother," Samira whispered, stepping forward. "Her name was Althea Collins." The taller officer nodded. "Yes. We received new evidence earlier this evening. A journal. Detailed entries. Dates. Notes. Descriptions of events inside your husband's shop." He paused, then added, "The journal has your fingerprints on it as well, Miss Collins." Samira's breath trembled. She had turned that journal in. She turned in the last thing her mother ever wrote. The officer's voice remained steady. "We're here to ask a few questions, but before we do, I need to know if everyone in this room feels safe." He looked directly at me. It was the first time all night that someone asked me that. Safe. What a powerful word. I looked the officer dead in the eyes and said, "Yes." But things have happened here tonight that you need to hear. The officer nodded. Then let's talk. I guided them to the dining table. Guests quietly slipped out one by one. Miss June hugged me tight before she left, whispering, "You are stronger than this." Mr. Earl touched my shoulder gently. Latoria stood close by, refusing to leave my side. When the room finally settled, only the officers, Samira, Latoria, Cortez, and I remained. The taller one folded his hands. "Mrs. Mayfield, earlier tonight, a fire hazard was reported at this address. A device was found." He looked at the metal object still resting on the edge of the counter. "Can you tell us what happened?" I spoke slowly, clearly, without shaking. "My husband brought that into my home tonight. He told me it was a heater part from his repair shop. But it was placed near my stove. It overheated. It started a fire during my celebration." The officer nodded. "Were you aware that this part was missing from the evidence list in a separate investigation?" Cortez's eyes snapped open. "What investigation?" I asked. The officer took a deep breath. "This piece, or something like it, was mentioned in your late husband's former employee's report years ago. The report suggested equipment tampering in the shop the night Althea Collins died." The room went still. I turned slowly toward Cortez. "Is that true?" I asked. His voice cracked. "I didn't kill her, Eudora. I swear." "Then why did she write what she wrote?" I asked, my voice low and trembling. "Why did she warn her daughter about you? Why did she say you threatened her? Why did she say you had a temper? Why did she die alone in that shop with your tools at her feet?" He stared at the floor, his silence louder than any confession. The shorter officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Mayfield, we need you to come with us for questioning. You are not under arrest at this time, but we need to take a formal statement." Cortez lifted his head, eyes wet. "Eudora, please," he whispered. "I didn't mean for your night to be ruined." I stepped back. Ruined. My life had been twisted. My trust dragged through mud. My home nearly burned. My peace shattered. And he called it ruined, as if this was some minor inconvenience. The officers guided him gently toward the door. But before he stepped out, he turned to me. "I loved you," he whispered. "Every day. Even when I made mistakes." I looked him in the eyes and found no hatred inside me. Only truth. "I loved you too," I said softly. "But love without honesty is not love. It's a cage." His breath hitched. Then the officers led him outside. The door closed. Silence settled over the house. Samira wiped her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to break your home." I stepped forward and took her hand. "You didn't break my home," I said. "You saved it." Her eyes widened, filling with tears again. "You are welcome here," I told her gently. "Not because of what happened tonight, but because your mother believed in me. And because you are not the sins of your father." She sobbed softly, leaning into me, and for the first time, I held her like she belonged. Latoria stepped closer. "Mama," she whispered, voice trembling. "Are we going to be okay?" I pulled both women into my arms. My daughter and the daughter I never knew existed. "Yes," I said. "We will be more than okay." Because when truth burns down a house, a stronger one rises in its place. Hours later, when everyone had gone and the night finally quieted, I sat alone at my kitchen table. The broken dishes had been swept. The smoke had cleared. The lies had been dragged into the light. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I looked at the doorway where Cortez left. The man I thought I knew. The man I loved. The man whose secrets nearly destroyed everything. Then I looked at the stove, the same stove that had almost taken my peace tonight. In the quiet, I whispered to myself. I survived. I didn't break. I didn't fall. I rose. I am Eudora Mayfield. And this is not the end of my story. It is the beginning. Thank you for watching this emotional story. If this touched your heart in any way, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support brings these powerful stories to life and helps us reach more people across the country.